Lucas then arrived. Landius would meet with Count Riesfelger as planned, and said he would come back to see them later. He also told Lucas not to cry, and hoped his muscles would continue to develop. Landius then left. When Jude and Cordelia were about to go back in, Lucas then said that he had something to say. Moments later, Cordelia was surprised that they couldn't go to the Frost Anvil. Lucas said that they had been attacked by the demon's horsepers twice, but fortunately Sylvia and the others hadn't been attacked a second time. They then asked about the fire sunflower. Lucas said that his father had ordered his subordinates to look for it, but before that he said that he needed to investigate the demon's hand first, which meant they had to stay here until the investigation was complete. Jude and Cordelia thought that it ruined their plan, and they planned to change it. Jude then said to Lucas that he wanted to walk around Vadefralner, so he asked Lucas to guide him. Because of his disease, it was his first time being this far from home. Cordelia also said that it was her first time at Vadefralner. Lucas would of course be happy to guide them, but now was not the right time, so Lucas would prepare a tour plan for them tomorrow. Cordelia thought that she was getting better at lying now. Jude said that she had to get better at lying faster, after which Cordelia asked Jude if he had a plan, because at this rate they would just be stuck here. Jude then showed her a piece of paper and a quill. Cordelia understood that Jude was planning to make some kind of farewell letter to escape. Jude told her to cooperate well. By the time it was evening, they had put the letter on the table, then slipped away quietly. Cordelia was upset why she had to write it this time, and about Jude continuing to put her in humiliating positions, like at Mount Belkin and now. Jude then assured her, since she had done strange things before, if she did it again there would be no difference. Cordelia was very upset to hear that. She then asked, what were they going to do now? They hadn't prepared themselves for the cold, and they also needed a horse to go to the Frost Anvil. Jude said that he had prepared it. Jude thought that recent events had put Cordelia in a bad mood, and the event that probably shook her the most was Dahlia's sudden departure yesterday. Jude then said to her that Delia would be fine. Cordelia was a little silent, then said that Delia would be fine, because she herself said that she would be fine if the curse was removed at home. Cordelia also said that she would level up quickly, so that she could protect them, so that Delia and the Guardian Knights wouldn't even have to get hurt. Jude said that she would be able to. And after a while they were shown to have a horse. They got it from someone named Fabian, a carrier from the underworld who bought and sold anything of value. With this horse they could get to their destination without any problems. Fabian had also told the guards to rest, because they happened to be people she knew, so Jude and Cordelia could leave in peace. Fabian also asked if they wanted to run away after doing something bad or something. Jude didn't answer the question. Fabian was fine with it, and said that she wouldn't ask again, because he didn't want to lose a customer either. She then left and wished them good luck. And on the way, Cordelia felt that she was feeling better, although earlier she had been worried about Delia, but in hindsight, she felt that they had done the right thing. She also really wanted Landius to stay alive, and hoped that the clues they had given him could help him. Jude asked if she really liked Landius. Cordelia said yes, because among the main characters in Legend of Heroes 1, Landius was her second favorite character after Rena. His favorite character in the first part was Rena, while in the second part was Cordelia. Cordelia said that she liked good and beautiful characters. Cordelia then asked Jude if he thought the two of them could save the other main characters. Jude said, whatever happens later, they will definitely save them. Cordelia then asked about his plan after they got to the fire sunflower. Jude was able to recover after consuming the fire sunflower, so he planned to manipulate the next main scenario, the attack of the northern barbarians. Their next destination would be the land of barbarity across the border. Cordelia then asked what he was going to do about Rena's death, which occurred during the attack. Jude said, since the event occurred at a predetermined time and place, they had to make sure that they could find the right moment to save her, and after they managed to save Rena, Jude planned to do something interesting. Cordelia then asked what it was, and guessed that it might be ancestral regression. Jude confirmed. Cordelia was confused. Could she do that now? Because Cordelia Chase could only do this when the game was in the final stage. Jude said they would use Landius as an example. One of the necessary materials was in the forced anvil. They could also get ancestral blood from Rena. There's no need to stay the story perfectly. Once they get the ingredient, they will do it as soon as they get the chance. Cordelia then asked about the magic circle they needed for that, because the magic circle was really difficult. Jude then mocked her. Did the second-ranked player seem unable to memorize the simple magic circle? Cordelia was embarrassed and angry to hear that, then bit Jude. The scene was then shown when Leon was reading the letter that had been left by the two of them. The two guards in front of her apologized for neglecting to look after them. Someone then entered and said that he had asked the guards guarding the gate. It seemed that they were unaware that anyone had left the city last night. Possibly Jude and Cordelia had used another secret way out of the city. Leon thought, whether they left of their own accord or not, as long as they were invited guests. If anything happened, they would be the ones to blame, which meant that the Riesefelger family would be responsible. They didn't expect that the two of them could escape again, since they probably hadn't gone too far. They then decided to start searching from a place near here first. Cy Leon felt that they were preparing to go somewhere, but before that they had to report what happened to Lucas and gather again after that. After a while, Jude and Cordelia decided to take a break and set up a tent. Cordelia wonders if Jude used to have a hobby of camping, as he can set up a tent very quickly. Jude then asked if she wouldn't be cold if they slept here. Cordelia said that she was fine, but she didn't want to be told to take a bath outside. Jude said that Cordelia didn't need to. He already knew the reason. An event that could be encountered while staying near the frozen river at night, the Silver Fairies event. Shortly after that, they were approached by two fairies who were attracted by their beauty, and invited them to play together. Jude then accepted their invitation while showing fairy footsteps. They were both surprised when they saw the fairy footsteps that Jude was wearing, because it belonged to the fall fairy, Queen Lorelei. They asked why Jude could have it. Jude thought that they fell for the bait. The storyline said that the Winter Fairy Queen treated the Fall Fairy Queen like a rival. Taking that into account, there was no way her subordinates would ignore an item like this. Jude then said that he received fairy footsteps from the Fairy Queen after he was invited to her banquet. Jude also said that the Queen of Lorelei herself gave it to him. They were surprised to hear that. The fairies whispered that this was an emergency, and now was not the time to ask them to play. They then asked Jude and Cordelia to follow them. After a while, they then arrived at the place where the Winter Fairies lived. They were amazed at the scenery there. The two fairies asked Jude and Cordelia to continue following them, and after a while, they were led to a room with a throne in the center. They were then greeted by the Winter Fairy Queen, Gerud, and after saluting the Fairy Queen, they were then examined by her, and as she expected, their looks were indeed suitable to be accepted by the Fall Fairies. She heard that Jude had fairy footsteps. Jude agreed that the Fall Fairy Queen gave it to him. She also rewarded them with Moonlight Staff, as a thank you for attending her banquet. The Winter Fairy Queen was surprised to hear that. Jude thought that even though they received it for defeating Bicorn, but he didn't need to say it. Jude then continued. They thought that it was a little excessive, but she insisted. She said that she always treated her guests well, so they received it as gratitude. The Winter Fairy Queen was again surprised when she heard that. She then ordered all the Winter Fairies to gather and start preparations to welcome the guests. The Fairy Queen frantically said that she hadn't forgotten. It was just that she thought that as a Fairy Queen, she should welcome her own guests first. Jude then said that he was very considerate, and praised her. The Fairy Queen looked embarrassed after being praised by Jude. Fairies are naturally cute and pranksters, also weak to compliments. The Fairy Queen said that the preparations were finished, and after they enjoyed the banquet, she also said that she would give reward to the two of them. The scene was then shown when the Guardian Knights were asking people around for the whereabouts of Jude and Cordelia. They were sad, because even though they had gone around the city to ask about their whereabouts, no one had seen them. They thought that Jude and Cordelia had left the city, because the purpose of Jude and Cordelia coming here was to cure Jude's illness. If I'm not mistaken, the place was the Frost Anvil. But while they were talking about Jude and Cordelia, their conversation turned out to be in the ear of a mysterious person. While Jude and Cordelia were currently acting out a drama scene, the fairies were very entertained by their performance. Cordelia felt very embarrassed after doing that. The Fairy Queen thanked them for their great performance, and as promised she would give reward to the two of them. The Fairy Queen would present them with Fairy Unity and Blessing of the Winter. Fairy Unity is a bracelet that holding the blessing of the fairies of the 4 seasons. If all the blessings are gathered, the world will accept the user as a fairy, and the Blessing of the Winter makes them resistant to all kinds of cold. With this they will be fine in the cold of Frost Anvil. The previous Fairy Queen was curious what brought them to this place, so they headed to the Frost Anvil. The Fairy Queen then decided to give them a little more help. She will make sure they will remember that winter fairies are never inferior to fall fairies. She then ordered a fairy to bring Fairy Feather here. The Fairy Feather is a mysterious feather that allows users to traverse space. Magic coordinates are required in order to arrive at the exact desired location. The creator of the Frost Anvil, the ancient dwarves and their winter fairies, were once closely related. Therefore, the Fairy Queen knew the exact coordinates, so she could take them directly to the Frost Anvil right now. But there was only one feather left, so the Fairy Queen suggested they use the feather by sticking their hands together while hugging. It seemed that the Fairy Queen had deliberately only brought one feather. Cordelia felt very embarrassed when she was about to do it. The fairies cheered them on, and when Jude hugged her, they both disappeared. The scene is then shown at the Demon's Hand Executive Council meeting. They are currently discussing Jude and Cordelia, who have left Count Riesefelger's protection. It is estimated that they will go to the Frost Anvil. because the purpose of the two of them from the beginning of visiting Count Rhysfelger was to find a cure for Jude's disease. And that cure is a legendary flower that only plants in the Frost Anvil. Chorus, the demi-demon high-level executive at the Demon's Hand, laughed at that. He felt that they didn't spare their lives, because they were still hanging around, even though they had been attacked twice. He was currently talking to Salyuja, who was also a high-level executive at the Demon's Hand. With minus death, they even lost Viscount Northern, the official leader of the territory. Had Landius not interfered, they might have been able to win that second attack. Chorus felt that Jude and Cordelia were just lucky. The chief then asked for more evidence showing that they had indeed gone to the Frost Anvil. Salyuja said, after checking the path to the Frost Anvil, several people had seen Jude and Cordelia pass through the path. In addition, the demi-demon Kano's predictions also pointed to the Frost Anvil. Kano's predictions had the disadvantage that they couldn't access them whenever they wanted, but once the predictions came out, they were always accurate. Salyuja guessed that Jude and Cordelia would arrive at the Frost Anvil in 2 days, so she asked the chief if they needed to station troops at the only entrance, the Great Gate. Then arrest them. Since Landius had already left Rhysfelger territory, they wouldn't encounter any surprises, so Salyuja asked the chief to give her one more chance to catch Jude and Cordelia here. The chief then said that she would trust her once again. Salyuja was happy to hear that, and said that she would definitely not let her down. Chorus was annoyed to see that. The chief then ended their meeting now, and wished the blessings of Asmodeus be with them all. Salyuja then asked her subordinates about the situation. Her subordinates replied that the demi-demons, Paragats, Vilkale, and Blade Demon had almost arrived. Currently they were probably in front of the Great Gate, because the Great Gate was the only entrance to the Frost Anvil, and the demon worshippers were also already on guard there, so she felt that Jude and Cordelia could not escape unless Landius helped them. Salyuja then said, unless they had the exact coordinates of the place, which had been lost since 1,000 years ago, then their plan this time would succeed. Her subordinates only thought that Salyuja was joking, because teleport was not an easy magic to use, unless they were a legendary fairy who could travel through time and space. The scene is then shown when Jude and Cordelia have arrived inside the Frost Anvil. Even though they have received the blessing of winter, Cordelia still feels the air here is quite cold. Jude then sees Cordelia, who is yawning. She seems sleepy, so Jude suggests to rest first. Since this is the first floor, there should be a rest room here, and it turns out to be true. They then find a rest room. They then take out some equipment to bathe and sleep. After a while they finally finish making a simple bed there. They then sleep. After Cordelia woke up, she saw Jude, who had already woken up, and was drawing a map. It was the internal map of the Frost Anvil. Although it was marked in ancient dwarven script, they could have been confused after seeing the same corridor so many times. Cordelia then asked Jude, how good was his memory when he could even remember that? Jude then talked about the Mind Palace. It was a method of remembering that had been used since ancient times, and was a way of storing information into the mind. A mind reinforcement method in which information is stored and accessed by visualizing a virtual space. This method also called the method of loci. Cordelia then asked if he had a book about ancient dwarves in his Mind Palace. Jude said yes. Jude could not remember the contents of the book before he accessed it in his Mind Palace. Jude also said that Cordelia could also do it if she wanted to learn. She just needed to practice continuously. Cordelia couldn't believe her ears. Since they were both awake, Jude then suggested eating. Jude thought that it had been a long time since he had heard Cordelia say Roger, and this was also the first time he had heard Yellowstrom's nickname after all this time. He wondered if Jude and Cordelia's personalities were becoming stronger within them. If this continued, wouldn't they change their nicknames to affectionate names as they mentioned at certain times? Jude blushed when he came to that conjecture. Cordelia then asked what he was muttering. Jude said that it was nothing. The scene was then shown when Salyuja's subordinates were guarding the Great Gate, the one entrance to the Frost Anvil. Paragat, Demonkin with big arms, then told his subordinates to guard well, and not to let a single rat in. Vilkale, Demonkin, called the red-haired witch, wondered how desperate Cordelia would be when she came here to cure her fiancé's disease, but instead they would be faced with 2 demonkin and 1 demon. They decided to do it right so that they wouldn't break the seal that sealed the Blade Demon. Paragat couldn't wait to see what kind of expressions Jude and Cordelia made when they got here. They didn't know that Jude and Cordelia were actually already inside the Frost Anvil. When Jude and Cordelia had finished eating, Cordelia praised Jude for being able to cook food this good. She asked where he studied. Jude only said that he studied abroad. Cordelia then asked about what they were going to do now. Jude said they were going to do the preparations they had talked about earlier. As it was about to bloom, the fire sunflower would give off a specific scent that would attract monsters who smelled it, and there were still 3 days before it bloomed. Cordelia wondered if they would be able to clear out all the monsters in the surrounding area before then. Jude then thought of a method. Cordelia asked what that method was. Jude then pointed to the entrance. Until a certain floor, most of the paths in the Frost Anvil were outside, so wouldn't the monsters die while running inside if they set a lot of traps at the entrance? Cordelia understood, but then got annoyed that she had to fill up a lot of magic circles again this time. Jude won her over because he had prepared a lot of mana potions for her. The next day, after they had eaten, Cordelia said that she felt comfortable here. The food was good. She could also sleep as much as she wanted, but even though she could clean herself with magic, she still wanted to take a real bath now. Jude then asked if she was okay, since yesterday she had been setting traps all day, if her muscles didn't hurt. Cordelia said that no one was sick, but she still felt a little nauseous after drinking a lot of mana potion. They then continued their journey. Cordelia asked if they only needed to go down to the 7th floor where the fire sunflower was. Jude said yes, they would also visit the 5th floor, because there was an item there. The members of the Demon's Hand are currently battling a horde of monsters at the Great Gate. Paragat then gave them the command to fight against the monsters. He wondered why Jude and Cordelia hadn't arrived, and why the monsters in this area had a tendency to move in groups like this. The monsters who were trying to get to the Frost Anvil seemed to have a common goal. Vilkale then said that she would create an opening so that Paragat could catch his breath. She would drive away all the monsters near them using his magic. Paragat was surprised, so what would she do against Jude and Cordelia later? Vilkale told him to stop thinking about that, because they could not be eliminated in a place like this. She would leave the next plan to him. Vilkale then released a magic attack that was so powerful that it made the surrounding monsters disappear, but after that he immediately fell. Paragat then asked about his condition. Vilkale said that she saw them in the sky, a larger group of monsters, approaching them. Paragat was very surprised to hear that. He then decided to break the seal on the Blade Demon, and took Vilkale to go to the Frost Anvil. The Blade Demon is not a demon they can control. They will seal it back after it is exhausted from fighting the monsters, while they will recover inside the Frost Anvil. Paragat said that they could look for Jude and Cordelia after that. He then ordered his surviving subordinates to retreat towards the Frost Anvil. Paragat then saw the magical seal covering the entrance to the Frost Anvil. He realized that it was from the Rhysfelger family. He then tried to destroy the seal, although he succeeded in destroying the seal. But his hand was badly injured as a result of this, and caused his subordinates to lag behind. Vilkale said that staying at the entrance was not a good idea, so she suggested going inside, but Paragat didn't even have the energy to answer him. She then led Paragat to a place where they could rest. Vilkale had trouble leading Paragat because of his weight, and after they walked for a while a light suddenly enveloped them, and Cordelia was happy because this time she went straight up 7 levels. Jude wondered if the vibration was the monster that made their trap active. But Jude was surprised, because he was sure that the trap was not that strong, to make them go up 7 levels. Cordelia then pointed ahead, a secret passage that led directly to the armory. She then told Jude to hurry up, although Jude was still hesitant, but he was happy to see Cordelia who looked so happy. The scene is then shown when Sai Leon and his entourage reach Jude and Cordelia's camp, and when they meet the 2 winter fairies. Seeing that the snow hadn't accumulated yet, they guessed that Jude and Cordelia hadn't left there long. They could catch up if they rode horses non-stop for a whole day, so they decided to go towards the Great Gate as planned. The guardian knight beside him said, although she should feel safe because the entrance to the Frost Anvil was sealed by the Rhysfelger family, but for some reason she felt uneasy. She thought there would be a couple who could enter the sealed door. They then set off. When they arrived at the armory, Cordelia felt very happy, seeing the many weapons there, but most of the items there were very large in size that did not fit them. Cordelia wondered what this item was about, because during the game she only thought this was an NPC item, so she never got it. Inside it said security helmet. It was natural because Frost Anvil was an underground city. There must be a lot of mining and excavation of soil here. Jude felt that leaving this item was a pity, because it had high defense power, but Cordelia said that she wouldn't want to use such an item. How could the beautiful Cordelia wear such an item? They then took a few useful items, such as the power spear, which could shoot psionic energy from the spearhead with just one use. Cordelia was very happy with this moment. She then showed an item called Expendable Bag, which could store objects 30 times larger than its size. And when they were about to decide to go straight to the 7th floor, they realized that there would be many weak monster bosses on the way there. They could farm exp, so they decided not to go straight to the 7th floor. Long ago, the lords of Frost Anvil, the ancient dwarves, froze their own homes. It was all because of the great King Leviathan who summoned the demonic beast the Great White Snake here. Fighting a demonic beast that could freeze their bodies just by looking at its eyes, left only 3 dwarves surviving. They then made the choice to destroy the city by blowing up the magic circle that sustained it. In exchange for defeating the monster, they sacrificed their future, their race and their city. Heroic and tragic story. It made the great white snake experience a long sleep in this place for thousands of years. Jude and Cordelia then reached the 7th floor, where the great white snake was sleeping. Cordelia understood that this place was the room where the magic circle exploded, but still she felt that this place was too cold. It was natural, because to make a terrible monster like the great white snake freeze the temperature had to be this cold. They thought it was good, when they saw the great white snake who was still asleep, although when the fire sunflower bloomed he would immediately wake up, but they would keep him asleep until that happened, they would finish him. They then attacked the great white snake, and that was it. White snake who was frozen in the frost anvil, died for no apparent reason. They were very happy because they got a lot of XP from killing him as well as getting the white mana stone item, an item that contained demonic energy in it. They then saw the fire sunflower that was about to bloom. If Jude ate it, although it couldn't cure his disease completely, but it could cure most of it. Jude then asked about the mana stone of the great white snake. Cordelia was confused by that, because as far as she knew, in the game, this material was useless, and could only be sold. Jude confirmed, because demonic energy was nothing more than a poison for ordinary people. But that was only a setting in the game. Jude then said that she might be able to absorb it. Cordelia was surprised to hear that. It was because Cordelia already had the power of the witch which came from the demon lord. Because Jude would not be able to do anything while absorbing fire sunflower, therefore he suggested this. Jude also advised Cordelia to absorb white snake's mana, although there might not be much mana left after thousands of years, but it should still help her for now. The reason why they exterminated all the monsters from the armory to the 7th floor was to find the 5th floor corridor. Not only exp, but also because when they absorbed the items, their bodies were in an unprotected state, so when fire sunflower bloomed, she had too. But before Jude could finish his sentence, he felt confused when he saw Cordelia's expression. Cordelia then said that she really liked forming a group with him. There were only a few seconds left for the fire sunflower to bloom. After the fire sunflower bloomed, it emitted its fragrance all around. Cordelia thought it was very pretty. Jude's heart was beating fast when he looked at Cordelia. He wondered what it was about. They then picked the flower. Jude then told Cordelia, if she felt a strange feeling, when absorbing mana from the great white snake, Jude told her to stop immediately. Cordelia was confused by that. Jude knew that this sounded strange, because he was also the one who suggested this, but the fact that a witch can absorb it is only in theory. Cordelia said that she trusted him. She told him to stop worrying, because she would wake up first before Jude, and would scribble all over his face. They then got ready to absorb it, and Cordelia headed to the place with the white snake mana, so that their energy would not be confused. While absorbing the white mana stones, purple energy enveloped Cordelia's entire body, while Jude, his body was enveloped by yellow energy, while absorbing the fire sunflower. Cy Leon and his entourage finally arrived at the great gate. While there, their feet kept stepping on the bodies buried under the snow. They also smelled the pungent smell of blood there. They wondered what was really going on here. They then saw several people in familiar clothes in front. One of the people introduced herself as Joanne, a member of the Holy Cross Guardian. They are currently searching this place. She then asked if they were from the Riesfelger family. Cy Leon said yes. Joanne then continued, after the seal of the Great Gate was broken, they detected the awakening of a very powerful demon. The scene was then shown, when the Blade Demon who had been freed from the seal, he currently seemed to have slaughtered the remaining members of the demon's hand left behind. He felt like he had returned to his body again. Back in Cy Leon, one of the guards was surprised to hear about a demon awakening in the Frost Anvil area. Not only that, Joanne said that since ancient times there was a terrible monster named Rivia Dun, that was the original name of the great white snake, who slept in the Frost Anvil, which made this place a forbidden area. They decided to speed up their movements, because they felt that the demon's horsepers who were chasing Jude and Cordelia were getting closer. Joanne was confused and asked who was involved in this incident. Cy Leon said he would explain later. Right now, they must not waste any time to reach the Great Gate. Cordelia had finally managed to absorb the demonic energy from the great white snake. She then looked at Jude, whether he had also succeeded or not, but she was then surprised when she saw Jude, who seemed to be having a hard time, to the point of making him lie down. Seeing that, Cordelia thought that Jude should have been more worried about himself earlier than her. After a while, Joanne finally figured out the situation that had befallen them. Cy Leon said, since the seal of the Great Gate had been destroyed, the one who installed the seal would get some kind of signal, and the second team should have been sent. Joanne was happy to hear that. It was likely that there would be an inevitable battle, so Cy Leon hoped that they could arrive faster. Suddenly a guardian knight in front gave a signal to stop, because he saw a strange thing ahead. He guessed that it was a black tree monster or something. Seeing that, Joanne suddenly told him to take cover. the monster suddenly slashed towards him quickly, but fortunately Joanne was still able to save the guardian knight. They were surprised that a slash that didn't even contain mana could reach that far. The other Holy Cross guards said to put up the seal, because they couldn't let the demon out of the frost anvil. After seeing Jude's state, Cordelia said that she was the one who didn't realize it, because it was not easy to change the energy in the body into another different energy. She wondered when Jude would regain consciousness. Staying too long in a dark and silent place like this made her restless, thinking about many things. She also thought about Lucas, who must have made plans for their trip around the area. She was a little guilty of lying to him. She also felt that she had inconvenienced the guardian knights. They were probably very worried about the two of them. She suspected that they might have come to the frost anvil to look for them. Cordelia then realized something. She had been feeling too happy because of the level up, and because of Jude's disease, which would soon be cured. At that time her and Jude's level was around 20, so even if all the monsters inside the frost anvil fell into the trap, they couldn't have leveled up that much. Moreover, if it was a monster that could make them level up 7 levels, even if they didn't directly kill it. Cordelia suspected that it was from the demon's hand, a group of demon worshippers who wanted to use Cordelia Chase as a sacrifice. Cordelia thought that if the demon's hand had managed to infiltrate this place, then the seal of the Great Gate must have been broken. In that case, even if they weren't looking for the two of them, they would definitely send troops to this place. Cordelia then said to Jude, who was still unconscious, that she was going upstairs first. Since she had just realized that there was a possibility that this was an attack from the demon's hand, she told Jude to join her as soon as he regained consciousness, or else if he was late Cordelia would really cross out his face. Cordelia thought, if she wanted to reach the Great Gate in the shortest possible time, she had to pass through the armory on the 5th floor, then enter the secret passageway from the 5th floor that led to the 1st floor. Cordelia thought that it would take her at least 15 minutes to get there. No, she felt that 5 minutes would be enough for her.